Good afternoon, everyone. I will call the meeting to order. I'm going to be running today's meeting. Jeff is on vacation. So first we'll go to verification of a quorum.
And I can verify that there is a quorum present.
Great. And so our next item is matters subsequent to posting the agenda. Does anybody have any items for this? Not hearing any. Did we get a public comment now, Brittany?
Yes, for any matters that are not on the agenda.
Okay, I'll go to public comment for any matters not on the agenda. Not seeing any hands there. So then we will go to the consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we went to public comment. So yes, we're on to the consent agenda, which just has one item, which are the minutes from May 15th.
Move approval.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Second that.
Great. Monica. Any other comments or discussion on that item? Okay, let's go to public comment. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so we can vote.
Okay, for the consent agenda, Ava Community Energy is absent. Central Coast Community Energy,
Yes.
Clean Power SF,
Yes.
Peninsula Clean Energy,
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority, we get Redwood Coast Energy Authority one more time. I think you're on mute.
She might be frozen.
Okay, I will come back. San Jose Clean Energy,
Yes.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy,
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power Authority is absent. Valley Clean Energy also absent. I will go back. Redwood Coast Energy Authority.
Hey, Brittany, I've lost my sound. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna need to troubleshoot here. I can't hear you. Oh.
Okay. Can you hear us at the moment? Okay, we will mark her as absent on that vote, but the consent agenda does pass.
Great. So now we're on to our regular agenda, and our first item there, A, is the general manager's report.
Thank you, board. It's great to have everyone together. We'll have a good but hopefully quick meeting today. On my end, I wanted to update you on a bunch of things, but they'll all be pretty quick. And then after that, we'll shift to the budget. And then after that, there'll be a closed session. So I'll remind everyone as we get further. Good to see everyone. Here we are at summer. So I'm excited. And Amy, can you please pull up the slides for the GM update? Actually, Howard, very well timed. On the next slide, I just wanted to welcome a few folks today. Very importantly, Howard Chang's been appointed as the new CEO of Ava Clean Energy, and so is now sitting on our board as well. So Howard, welcome. Great to have you here. And we'll tell you what the hazing rituals are soon. But obviously, I didn't tell you to wear polka dots or anything for today. So great to have you here. And I wish you the best of luck in your new role. Thanks. Just wanted to also announce two other additions to the CC Power side. We have Shagan Tugas, who many of you know is a project management consultant who's worked with various CCAs, is also going to be helping us. And she's already making an impact. So it's great to have her here. You'll see her under an email from CC Power. So you'll start to see her as part of our team. And then also we have an intern who's joining, Jack Schaffler, who's from UC Davis, pursuing his master's degree, has a lot of relevant experience, including with operating renewable plants. So we're excited to have him here. He's going to be reporting under Philippe, our director of origination. and helping Philippe with our analytical needs. So he'll have some work here, and if you see him around, that's who Jack is. So it'd be great to have Jack join. Let's move on. So on the contracting side, this is my chance to report out on any contracts that were signed just under my general authority. So I wanted to list all these and I'll run them through and happy to explain anything. First was Shoggun's contract not to exceed 20K and expires soon, August 30th. So we're really getting this opportunity to try out having a consultant help with us on project management. We also have a new consultant, Jin No, doing a little bit of work on under his company Decode Consulting. His expertise is on regulatory services, so he's helping us if we need on a time and materials contract on some regulatory advisory work. We also have BCV Renewable Agreements. This is a contract management support person who's helping Philippe with a not to exceed of 15K T&M monthly. We recently contracted with E3 to help us with some project costs and benefits assessments. So they've mostly completed that work. We also, in the sort of category of strategic assessments on behalf of all members, we've been looking at this possibility of a resource adequacy power pool and what the benefits might be in the slice of day regime. And so we have a strong consultancy, GDS, helping us there. And then lastly, we have contracted with Shepherd Mullen for Tax Advisory Council. We're going to be playing various roles with us on our projects and maybe on the build transfer project. So that's the Shepherd Mullen contract, not to exceed 75K. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay. All right, let's move on. So let me just run you through some updates. You've seen a little activity on the file sharing side. So basically we're moving from a relatively clunky file sharing structure to a slightly more improved and customized one where everybody's registered and then we can assign you to these different sites. It's identical to how CalCCA structures their file sharing. And so you'll have seen some emails out to get registered. And then once you're registered, we can assign you to the appropriate sites. This also kicks out updated listservs so we can make sure our communication to all you and your staff is improved. For purposes today, though, I wanted to just mention 3 of the sites. One is the Member Information Center. This is where we do, this is open to all CC Power members at all times. So there's no restrictions. The members can go in and get any information that's available to all members, including the working groups. So for many of your staff participating in working groups, which is the phase 1 work, this is really where they go. And that's where you can see all of the work from the resource planning working group or any other working groups. There's also going to be policies and procedures and other materials there. And again, it's open for all members and staff. A more restricted site is the CC Power project site. So for those of you who are part of our projects, you've signed on, and some of those will go for many years, and there's confidential contracts and other materials there. So you'll get access through the CC Power project site or specific project sites to the specific project files, including project agreements, contracts, project advisory subcommittee activities, related analyses, or anything we're working on the project. There'll also be potentially settlement statements and other materials there as well in the future. And the reason we've structured it this way is it's only available for the members and the staff assigned to that project. So not everyone will have access to the same CC Power projects, of course. And so inside the project site, we customize who gets access to what. And then lastly, for you all as board members, we'll have a board site where you'll always be able to access any of the relevant information. Now, some of this is also on the public website, but we may also have materials here that help you stay informed, such as governing and operating documents or reference materials. So the board can come and grab any of those materials as they need, and we'll set that up. We'll also give that access to the alternates. So your alternates can also always sort of plug in as needed. So this is going to be rolling out. Again, the process is to have people register, and then shortly after that, we start to assign people and we shift all of the files over to these sites, that will make all of the current links old and stale. And so we'll start to cancel the existing links and everybody will have a, small period of adjustment, but then we should be really set going forward with a more customizable and organized file sharing model. I also want to emphasize it's important to us that your staff is looped in. And so if you hear of anyone who's not getting materials, we can really fix that quickly, make sure that you guys are aware and your staff is getting all the appropriate information. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, Amy, let's move on. Yeah, so on that note of staff, just wanted to, just remind the board and continue to encourage you as you have staff turnover to keep an eye that they're plugged in appropriately. So we have these working groups that are monthly. Any staff are relevant, but they are specialized on expertise. The main working group we have right now is the resource planning working group, which is very active. And a lot of potential project ideas will get discussed there. That's also where we've been discussing site tours and other things that would be relevant for that subset group staff. And then again, we'll have files on the files will be available to all on the member information site. And then on the project related work, we have these project advisory subcommittees. This is really where we liaison with your staff. These happen monthly. And we also have sub teams at times we work with to make sure that any project participants are highly engaged and informed on what's going on. Well, I wouldn't say we use we don't require consensus for decisions if it comes to that, but we do try to make sure we check in with all participating members on any project so we really understand things and can steer the project work appropriately. And then additionally, we have these recurring member check-ins. So in some instances, we've been able to set up recurring meetings with members, and we're happy to do more of that. It's really, we found it to be very valuable to continue to stay connected at various levels in your organization. And so I just wanted you to know. And again, if you have staff turnover, that's always a risky time where we might lose some continuity. And so it's good for us to sort of be aware of it and make sure your staff gets plugged in appropriately, especially as you get new staff. Or we can deplug old staff. Okay. All right, next slide. So just a couple updates for you all as board. We are now in the final month of CC Power's fiscal year, where I expect we'll land, and we'll have financials coming out in July or August. That'll be unaudited, and then we'll go through an audit. So you'll see a clear picture of where everything was over the course of the year. We're going to be in line with the budget. And then just as we wrap up the year, there's a little more invoicing to be done on the 23-24 budget. So you'll see invoicing related to WoodMac, information sharing project for those who participated, and the BTA Phase 2A project for those who participated there. Let me do a couple more things and then we'll get to resolution, the next agenda item where we'll bring Nick, we'll allow Nick to participate from the public room, so to speak. One other important update on the BTA Phase 2A. So again, this is where we're looking at running a solicitation to get bids to compare ownership models with direct pay against third-party PPA or toll models for projects. All of our members are participating in that, and there's been a lot of work to gear that up. The main update is that solicitation is going to launch in about July. We were hoping to get it in June. We're still getting a few things lined up, including these pro forma documents, which are the first ones we've ever developed, right? So we're working on that. All of your members are involved in having opportunities to review. And then once we get the materials ready so that the solicitation is efficient for bidders, we'll launch that. We're using TEA for that to run that solicitation. And then we'll invoice you guys in the next 2 weeks for that solicitation. We have not yet invoiced everyone from there because we've been finalizing the project participation agreement amongst members on the BTA Phase 2A. So I'm really excited about that. We continue to, informally get indications of interest from parties. And so I do expect we'll see some action and it'll be helpful for everyone to participate in that solicitation. And then one last update on board level communication. I really want to make sure that information's transferred to you guys in useful ways. So I'm going to start to do more board level communications outside of meetings, and that's always fine if I send you information. So be on the lookout for more updates from me as a way to make sure you're getting information, and that will be in addition to feeding information through project advisory subcommittees and working groups. So this way, it should be easier for you all to calibrate inside your organizations about everything that's happening from CC Power. One example of board level communication, we sent out a recent legal briefing memo yesterday. So that was a good example of how some board members can get briefed on what's happening, and we can share legal analyses, etc. Okay, next slide. And thanks for letting me run through this. Okay, last item. Today you'll see the budget, and if that's approved, embedded in the budget is this fall in-person planning session. As CC Power grows and matures, it's important that we have opportunities to shape the organization or be effective in various ways. And I know everybody's time is really valuable. So one thing we're trying to do for the fall is this in-person session in Davis, California. It would basically be a 24-hour event, starting with lunch on Monday, October 28th. We would have a site tour and some speakers, dinner with special guests, and then have a planning session the following morning and then lunch. The reason we've selected these dates is not only are they available, but it's also the Tuesday the 29th is the day that the CAISO Symposium starts in the evening. So if it works, everybody could already be close to Sacramento. And then on Tuesday, you could leave this event and head to the CAISO Symposium reception that afternoon or evening. So we're hoping this will be good. A few notes about the Davis sites. They do have an academic lighting center that is pretty interesting, and I think will be relevant for our work and just sort of informative for everybody. And they also have academic experts on cooperative models. So we'll probably bring in some of those cooperative experts to talk about how co-ops and this type of joint action group have been helpful in other parts of the country. And they'll also talk about resources that might be available to co-ops that, for those of us in California are not always as apparent, and how there's these whole infrastructures for co-ops to function effectively that it would be helpful for our board to understand. So I'm really looking forward to that and having everyone together. And I wanted to just flesh out this picture for a little bit for everyone. We also had put a hold on your calendar for that time. And our understanding is this works about as well as we can hope for everybody's schedules. So if there are any issues, please let me know and I'll continue to work to get this set up with Shoggun's help. So that's the end of the GM update. Any questions before we move on to the next agenda item, Director Mitchell?
I don't have any questions. Does anyone else?
Okay, so Vice Chair Mitchell, back to you then. Oh, great. We got one question from Director Padilla.
I'm sorry, just, will these slides be posted or sent to us at some point?
Yes, these slides will be posted to the website. And Director Padilla, I'll check because I also emailed these out yesterday. So if you didn't receive that, let me know. And that means we need to tune one of our listservs, as I mentioned earlier. So
Probably did, but I just probably didn't see it, so I'll look again.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder, if we could go to public comment on this item before we move to the next item.
It's great. Any other discussion on this item, the GM report? Okay, we'll go to public comment. Any member of the public wanting to discuss this item? I'm not seeing any, so I think we're on to the next item, which is recognizing Nick Chassett for his service to CC Power. So I will pass it over to you, Alex. I think we're promoting Nick, right?
So yeah, General Counsel Al's, we want to recognize Nick. He's here. And so, yeah, is it okay to bring him into the meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
he's just been promoted.
Okay. Hi, former erstwhile Director Chassett, erstwhile CEO Chassett. I hope, I really appreciate you coming to join us. And this is our brief chance to recognize you and thank you for your work. You have been a founding CC Power member. You have been a founding personality and character and leader for the CCAs for many years. And in many ways, CC Power does reflect some of your vision as we move to sort of provide cost savings for CCAs, help the CCAs succeed. So on behalf of me, I just want to say thanks for all your support and leadership. It's been great to have a chance to work with you. I'm sad you're leaving, although Howard, happy to have you. And wanted to have everybody get a chance to say farewell and thank you, Nick. So Director Mitchell, how do you want to approach this? You want to give Nick some remarks, or do you want to have people speak up? Anything you suggest?
Sure. Yeah, I have a couple of remarks, Nick. Just really enjoyed working with you over the years. I know we both launched our CCAs together, and just have always appreciated all of your support and working through different issues over the years. I think it's been, I can't believe that that was 2017 when we both were starting to launch, in your case, East Bay, and mine, San Jose. But it's just been such a pleasure working with you, and I know you're going to do great things in your new role. Just looking forward to that as well. But I really thank you for all your leadership on CC Power. It's not easy to start up a new organization, and you were pretty supportive of it from the very beginning. So just really want to thank you for all your work here and at Cal CCA, and to advance everything that you've accomplished with AVA over the years, and for CCAs in general. But maybe with that, Nick, if you
510
yeah, thanks.
219 2121. Oh. Yep. Can you hear me, guys?
We can.
Yeah, we hear
Okay,
you.
great.
Nick.
Great. All right. Well, I was not actually able at our board meeting to express my gratitude for so many of you, and the opportunity to sort of build this movement with you over the last 7 years. It's pretty incredible, that we've gotten to a place where, we're serving 20-30% of all Californians. And, it's sort of a bit of a glimmer in our eye when we started. Not for some. I mean, we have CCAs that have been operating for a while, but the scale that we've achieved is really incredible. And I think the kind of coordination and partnership that we're establishing at places like CC Power is really so emblematic of how we have each other's back, and we partner and work together. And I'll be cheering you all on. And I'm excited to sort of see what the next phase of this agency is, and just to see community power continue to grow, and deliver the goods to the people of California. So thank you for the opportunity to do so much interesting and fun stuff with you.
Yeah, we'll keep the lights on. Okay, Nick. Director Mitchell, you want to open it up for others?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
I'm sure there's others that want to say a few words. There we go. Rob, and then Monica.
Thank you, Director Mitchell. Yeah, Nick, I echo Lori and Alex's comments. Really have appreciated your leadership in thinking about setting up CC Power and CCCFA, and thinking about the components that can make these agencies successful. And personally, I think having gotten an opportunity to work with you in a number of different areas where you brought not only your knowledge of the energy industry, but what is motivating different players in the energy industry. And those opportunities I'll always sort of look back on and think about that thought process and leadership that you showed in those distinct, whether it was regulatory or contractual issues that we worked through. It was a pleasure to work with you and see your leadership style and approach to those things. So I wish you the absolute best as you move forward, and look forward to working with you as you move on in the next stage of your career. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Rob. Monica.
Well, Director Chassett, I didn't get to work with you very much as a co-CEO, although I probably was one of the first ones to meet you in this space, because I was on the steering committee that formed East Bay Community Energy. So you were my first introduction to a CCA CEO, and I was like, very impressive. We have a chance here. So because as you were, if you weren't in on the creation of East Bay Community Energy, there was well, Sean, you were there for some of it as well. It was a lot of effort to get that CCA up and running, and a lot of community involvement, a lot of stakeholder interest in that process. And I just kept thinking, we need a really strong leader that can manage this effort and create something out of a whole lot of different interests, not always the same interests. And Nick, certainly you did that job. So I regret that I don't get to work with you much as a CEO, co-CEO. I look forward to working with Howard though, because I spent some time working with Howard as well. And I wish you all the luck and thank you again for all your service.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. Howard and then Mike.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. As you can imagine, I've had a few different opportunities to share thanks and praise to Nick over the last week, and he is continuing as our formal advisor for the next month. And whether he likes it or not, I'll use him as an informal advisor beyond that. But want to thank the great foundation you've built for us within AVA, and obviously with CC Power as well. And I've got big shoes to fill. I'm excited to step into this role and work with you all more closely as part of CC Power, as there's a lot of exciting initiatives to focus on. So thanks.
Thanks, Howard. Mike.
Yeah, hey Nick. On behalf of Clean Power SF and Barbara, who I'm sitting in for today, I just wanted to express our appreciation for your leadership in our CCA space, your innovative thinking, and wish you the best in your next endeavors. If you're staying in the city, we're always interested in hearing feedback from informed customers. So you know where to reach us. Don't hesitate. Yeah, and good
I'm
luck.
ready to join the CAC, Mike.
Be careful. I'm typing that up right now.
We welcome addition. I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, I think Sean, you get the last word here.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to say, Nick, I am very excited for your next chapter in the private sector, and happy that you are now hopefully absolved of a lot of nighttime public meetings. And I just hope that they made you an honorary member of the local Clean Energy Alliance, because I know that that would be fantastic. So with that, it's been a delight to watch you from day one with East Bay and all of the tremendous growth that AVA Energy has experienced. It's just really quite remarkable. And you set a standard here. So thank you for that. Good luck with everything in your future. And I know we'll be seeing you. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. So Brittany, do we get a public comment on this as well?
Yeah, so this is a resolution, so if we could get a motion in a second, and then go to public comment.
Well, I am happy to make the first motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. And then we will go to public comment. And I'm not seeing any. So we will go ahead and vote.
Okay, for resolution 240601, commending and thanking Nick Chassett for his service to California Community Power, AVA Community Energy.
Yes.
Central Coast Community Energy,
Yes.
Clean Power SF,
Yes.
Peninsula Clean Energy,
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority,
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy,
Yes.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy,
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power Authority is absent, and Valley Clean Energy is absent. Thank you. The resolution passes.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. Talk soon.
All right, so we are on to item 6C, which is approval of our budget for this year. So I'm going to pass it over to General Manager Morris to talk us through that, but just really appreciate all of the work of Alex and the team at CC Power and all of the input for board members to get us to this point. So I'll pass it over to you, Alex, to run through it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Mitchell. So thanks, everybody. Before you now is a voting item on the 2024 to 2025 budget. As all of you know, there has been a lot of background here. We've used multiple board meetings to walk you through our process for how we're doing the work planning and how that connects to the budget and how we might invoice. There's also an extensive staff memo in the board packet. And so I wanted to take this chance, Joe, to just bring a lot of it for you where we landed, and then have some discussion, and then the board can decide what to do. So this is resolution 240602, and we'll jump to the next slide. When we started this process, we were looking at a wide range of budget items and a wide range of scopes for the organization. At one point, the numbers were higher. We went all the way up to the 6 millions. And then we looked to sort of really, we got some good feedback about making sure we were being reasonable and realistic in how we were approaching staffing and resourcing and how much scope we could handle. And so through that iterative process, we now are back and we land on this final recommended budget of 4.51 million. As you know, a core structure for CC Power is the project versus the G&A side, and I'll talk more about that. But so when you look at the 4.5 million, you see it's much more project heavy, which means in a way that's good because only members who are interested really end up paying down the road for it. And the G&A, by contrast, is shared equally. So this work plan aligns with the strategic plan, which is this multi-page document that was adopted by the board in 2022 that lays out a vision and a growth strategy and really a value proposition for CC Power. And then on top of that, we worked with every member to get input. And so we did surveys, we had interviews, and we also had a chance to iterate on things. So we have a pretty clear sense of what could be valuable for members. And we've embedded all of that thinking into the budget. And the way to think of the budget at this point is it's a work plan you're approving, because it really details some of the work we're going to try to take on. And so in some ways, it's a commitment to this plan, but I want to emphasize that we still understand members need to opt into projects. And so I'll detail that distinction in the word project. And the way to focus on that will be by these phases we use, because that really helps you know what you're signing up for and when. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. So you can see this third bullet where it says that a la carte model is still retained, but the estimated costs are listed in the budget. So a good example is when we talk to members, there's expressed interest for us to continue to look at the build transfer project. And we don't know what the shortlist will reveal or if members will end up wanting to move forward. But for purposes of planning, we have estimated that and put that in the budget. So that is helpful direction for us on what type of focus and the spending plan will be. That said, you know, there's going to be an opportunity for everybody to decide if they're actually interested in joining those projects or not. And when we get to that milestone, there would be the cost sharing agreements, et cetera. What's really distinct though for this year is that we've thought through the entire year and what the work plan will be, and that's what shows up in this $4.5 million budget. In past years, we only sort of looked at the phase 1 work and the phase 3 work. So phase 1 is what are we going to assess for future projects, and then phase 3 is what are the existing projects we need to manage. So those were really known entities. It's really in phase 2 where we say we think members are going to be interested in this. We want to estimate those costs in the budget. But at the end, you know, any monies that are advanced for that work would be sitting in balancing accounts. And if you don't opt in, then the extra money in those accounts gets reapplied back to you. So there's been a lot of advances also in just our overall budgeting process compared to how CC Power has started with things in a much simpler environment even a year ago. And actually next year will be much more complicated because we're getting to a point of really project by project accounting. And that becomes really important next year because starting next year, we'll start to be close to when projects come online. And when a project's actually online, you'll have, you know, large sums of money, market settlements, and PPA payments all bundled into that project accounting. So moving the organization from our relatively simplistic budgeting to this more project by project accounting structure is really critical. And this budget moves us pretty far down that path, but I still expect more sophistication to it next year. let me keep moving on, and then I welcome comments. As a reminder, and I think another helpful piece here is really how do we approach work and projects? And we use this phase 1, 2, 3 structure. And phase 1 is really an idea assessment. We often use what we call the term strategic assessments. We work with all members to look at ideas, and everyone's eligible to look at it. So that's where we use the working groups. We then put up a paywall and say, okay, only interested parties who want to further advance this work should pay. No one else should cross-subsidize this work. So when we get into phase 2 is where you opt in if you're interested. And that's really the phase where we look to further develop this project at concept. And typically it will include a solicitation and negotiation phase. The costs are shared according to the specific agreement we develop. So it could be shared equally, or it could be shared in different ways. An example of past cost share agreements were on certain power projects. Some members had large shares, some members had small shares. So they separated the cost differently. And we really restrict the information in phase 2, because if you're not actually paying to participate, you won't have access to it. So we restrict it, and our file sharing model supports this as well. And then lastly, at the end of phase 2, you typically will have a critical decision. Do you actually want to move forward on a final negotiated deal? And that's where it would kick into phase 3, which is sort of, again, you must opt in from phase 2 to 3. And then we're in the phase of just administering a contract or a project for its life. And in some cases, that can be many, many years, maybe decades. And again, access to all that information or to the governance of a project is restricted only to participants. So if you take this structural model for work and you go to the next slide, you see how we've categorized the work by phase. So on the next slide, you see phase 1. Again, this is where we're looking at a bunch of ideas to see what members think and if they want to pursue a phase 2 on it. In phase 1, we have a pretty heavy focus on power supply related project ideas. So we want to work with the resource planning working group to assess potential areas for joint action. We also want to work with the members on road mapping how we might scale in key contracts through a master services agreement. Some of the likely target areas for that would be scheduling coordinator services. Everybody needs it. Some of you really like your vendors, and so if we have a master services agreement, we might have more scale and size in contracting without really changing your service provider very much. So we'll look at those MSAs. We're also going to work a lot on the role of data and where joint action makes sense for the CCAs. But again, this is phase 1, so it's actually not a project. We're just assessing it and learning. And then we're going to have, I'd say, fairly limited consideration of a bulk buy activity. That's a bit more on the research plan, but maybe even on the program side. So we'll start to spool up the programs working group a little bit there. And we do all of that through the working groups in phase 1. So that's all actually in the budget. And then phase 2 is a really exciting set of sort of possible deals that we're thinking we could end up pursuing through phase 2. Many of these are not approved, although some of them are partially approved. So inside phase 2, the work we expect would be to continue this phase 2A work and possibly to follow that with a phase 2B. Just to remind you, phase 2A of the BTA is where we're looking at ownership opportunities through a solicitation and also PPA toll comparisons to see if we want to move forward with either for the members. And then phase 2B really refers to if we do want to try owning a project. Phase 2B is where we would get into the debt issuance complexities. And that's a significant, complicated, multi-month activity. So specifically for BTA, we've separated the phase 2A, which is the competitive solicitation and shortlisting, from the actual final negotiation debt issuance provisions, which is the 2B. We thought it made more sense for that project to do it that way. And it also helps members jump out before costs increase. And the phase 2B will likely be materially more expensive than the phase 2A. We also have funds for an additional solicitation. We don't know exactly what that would be, but we know from working with our members that there's many ideas in the resource planning working group, which could lead to a phase 2 solicitation. So we have that in the budget. As I mentioned on these MSAs, if we assess them and members opt in and want to pursue it, we would then use a phase 2 for MSAs, maybe on metering and billing or for scheduling coordination. We're also doing work on this RA power pool, and if there's interest, we would move it, those who are interested would move to a phase 2 to work on that. We're also going to be prepaying some of our CC Power projects, and so we may look to do a joint prepay with members. So that would be a phase 2 where only those who want to do a joint prepay would opt in, and that might be a good fit for members whose overall volume of contracts is smaller, such that they don't prepay on their own, and they may instead want to partner and jointly do it. As I mentioned, we may look at these bulk buys, and we did a few bulk buys on information services last year. Oh, I skipped offshore wind. We may have members who are interested in further work to kind of get closer to contracting on offshore wind and maybe do a demonstration project. So we're going to tee that up as a phase 2 if people want. And then lastly, we'll have these computer-based trainings. I'm actually quite excited about the computer-based trainings because they're going to be a helpful tool for everyone, not only for new staff or for your resource planning folks who want anti-market manipulation training, but also we may have a CCA 101 training that may help with new board members or new staff. Okay. Or a CCA and Grid 101. And then again, all this is in the budget. Lastly, in phase 3 is we have, and this is a really high priority, we want to continue managing our 4 power contracts to their COD and gearing up for operations. So really embedded in that is sort of the legal project management oversight work of a PPA, and then gearing up for the operations. What's our plan for settlements, scheduling, coordination? Do we have a coordinated operations agreement amongst the participating members? How are we going to settle, et cetera? So all that's in phase 3. And then pretty light, we expect that we may end up doing some of these information service purchases again. And so once you sort of agree to it, it becomes phase 3. So we have it listed there as well. So that's the work area. Just I'm excited. I think this is a really great set of opportunities for everyone. I think that there's a lot of value in the phase 2 work and a lot of opportunities for you and your staff to figure out what's important for you in the phase 1 work. And then I think there's a lot of criticality to the phase 3 work. So, we're resourcing everything in ways that make sense with those value propositions, and that's all embedded in the budget. But I also think this really moves this agency forward. It should yield a lot of value and cost savings through joint action, and we'll see, and we'll do some assessments at the end of the year. One thing that's tricky here is that I'm trying to calculate a return on investment, so to speak, for all of our members. So you see how participation in CC Power yields value for your individual CCA. In some cases, though, we're looking at multi-year investment concepts. And so it's a little hard within a single year to track the ROI of a multi-year investment, but that is something we can look at. And I think some of those long-term investment areas you can look at in phase 1. For instance, data joint action projects is one where many of you need data solutions that can be really valuable. They help you with your customers in many ways. And you're all going to have to find your own solutions for it. So maybe that's an area we can find cost savings, and we'll look at that. And again, that probably won't yield a final project this year, but it could be something that yields value in future years. So we wanted to look at it. So again, I welcome questions, but I'll keep moving on. And I want to get this, we do have a closed session we want to make sure we have time for as well. So lastly, in the budget, we have the board event. There's also external engagement. We're doing these site tours and pre-origination work. We found this to be helpful because as we head into our RFOs on projects, it's good to really understand what we might see, and also to think about how we set up the solicitation to work to make sure that the projects we want are showing up and competing. So those site tours are great. It's also a good way for your staff to get out. If they ever want to see power plant sites, we'd welcome it. We had one recently. It's very educational. And then lastly, the agency is still pretty young, so we're doing these organizational enhancements, and I think we'll continue to build some of our policies and operating norms, et cetera. So let's go to the next slide. I think a question then is, what does it all mean for you? And inside the board memo, there's a lot of information about how we would invoice everybody. And I want to differentiate invoicing from the overall work plan, which is the budget. But to make it more clear, we do think there'll probably be roughly 3 categories of invoice. First is the G&A, and many of you, through participating in CC Power and signing up, have your own authorizations to pay out on G&A, and that lands at 118 per members for 1.06 million bucks. On phase 2, this is really the new part where we're looking ahead. You can see your CCA's share of the costs, and it's about 1.9 million total in phase 2, which is really where a lot of the new deal flow gets run by you if you're interested. And I'll talk about invoicing for phase 2 in a second. And then lastly, phase 3 is really where we're looking at moving the existing approved projects that already have cost share agreements forward and executing on those. So I can see 3 invoices, again, the G&A invoice, the phase 3 invoice that already has cost share. Those are in a way more straightforward. The phase 2 invoice is a little bit trickier because that's where we're saying, hey, here's the cost plan for deals that you have not signed up for yet. So is it appropriate for us to invoice you yet? How will we approach this? In the memo, we talk about, we need to come up with maybe a sort of broad cost share agreement to allow and enable invoicing on this expected phase 2 work plan that still gives members room to opt into projects. I view that as an implementation detail on the invoicing side. So I think what's most important now is to focus on the overall budget and make sure it seems logical. And then on the invoicing and sort of cash call side, we would do that in ways that work for the members as needed. Okay. And so that wraps up the presentation. I think one other thing I would just note for you before I welcome any questions is on the phase 2 expected origination numbers. Inside the memo, we further break that down. So you can see that, and I'm just going to use Central Coast as an example. Their phase 2 expected origination is $237,000. And so Director Shaw may say, well, what's included in that? And if you go to the memo, you can see a sort of deal by deal breakdown of what projects might be available for 3CE to participate for those dollars. And you see that some of it has to do with the phase 2B estimation. Some of it has to do with information services. Some of it has to do with RA Power Pool and other ways. So there's whole levels of information embedded in that in the staff memo, if you're interested. And I know many of you have looked at it, but I wanted to just mention it here in the public meeting as well. So with that, Chair Mitchell, I can conclude my remarks and welcome any questions.
Yeah, no, great, Alex. Thank you so much for that. I'm very supportive of this budget, and thank you for providing all the detail. I think the staff memo is really helpful to break down each of the phases and what we're getting for that. And just really appreciate you working with all the board members to advance this and to advance the strategic plan that we outlined before you were on board. I did have a couple comments that Jeff wanted me to make about his comments on the budget. He's also very supportive of the budget. He would have liked us to go a little bit further with a strategic plan than this budget allows us, but he still is very supportive of moving forward with this budget. I think I share his sentiments. I would have preferred us to go a little bit faster with the strategic plan, but I'm very supportive of what you've laid out, and I think it works for more of the members. So with that, I see a couple hands up, so I'll go to Mike first and then to Sean.
Thank you, Vice Chair Mitchell. I'd also like to echo appreciation to the General Manager for the collaborative process on this budget development. I really appreciate what you're trying to accomplish, and sort of echoing what Vice Chair just mentioned, in growing and maturing this organization. I think there's a lot of valuable initiatives that you've identified in the work plan to tackle this upcoming year. And we also support the budget proposal. as we took a look at the proposal, there were a couple of things that we thought sort of maybe this could even almost be kind of administrative here, but would be helpful in the resolution as a best practice to make clear. And I think you alluded to this, General Manager, in your presentation with respect to cost share agreements and things like that. What we're hoping to see is maybe in the resolution some more specific direction from the board to the general manager regarding documentation needed to support expenditures, especially for the emerging work areas. We've shared some language with the general manager and general counsel on this for the resolution. One, there are two elements to it. One would be directing the general manager to prepare scopes of work for phase 1 and phase 2 projects as they're developed and make those available to the members. I think generally this is a practice the general manager is already conducting. And the second is that we'd propose language to direct the general manager to work with members to establish the appropriate agreements and documentation needed for phase 2 projects that are being proposed. So thinking here along the lines of the cost sharing agreement that the general manager referred to.
Yeah, may I respond quickly,
Sure.
Director Hines? Is that okay? Yeah, so just for everybody, San Francisco provided a lot of helpful input on this sort of idea of here's a work plan, how do we help board members feel good about it? And there's some good practices that we can consider that he's mentioning, like having further scopes work. It turns out we already are doing a lot of that, but I think embedding it in the resolution is a reasonable step that helps the board feel comfortable. And Mike, feel free to correct me if I'm misstating anything. And then additionally, you know, and this is also fair, is, you know, here's a work plan, but we also have to link it with how we invoice to the members. And so he's highlighting that there needs to be fair cost sharing agreements that are substantiated and agreed to. And so he's suggesting we include a little language in the resolution on that. So let me just quickly jump to General Counsel Isles. Brittany, if we were to incorporate any of those proposed red lines, what would the process be so everybody can react, and then we can discuss how to further allow for consideration of that, and then hopefully we can jump over to Director Padilla after that.
Yeah, so I believe we have the red lines available to share. Amy, if you want to pull those up so the board can see what those would look like. And as we're considering this resolution, we'd also consider those amendments as part of the resolution. So if we could continue the conversation with the other board members. And then at that point, when we do get to a motion on the resolution, it would be the motion with this proposed amendment or without this proposed amendment, based on the view of the board.
So Mike, can you just connect these two lines, red lines, to what you mentioned before so everybody's tracking efficiently?
Yeah, the first addition in red there speaks to the preparation of scopes of work for phase 1 and phase 2 projects. And the idea here is that we have documentation supporting the work and the expenditures that we're investing in here on those projects. And then the second is that and we're recommending the term here, appropriate agreements and documentation, to be flexible to support various members' needs. But as far as our CCA goes, in order to, you know, cut a check to CC Power, we need some type of agreement in place. And we have that for the GNA, and we have that for the phase 3 projects that we're committed to, but the phase 2 projects are in a gray area for us. So this language is providing direction to the general manager to put in place the agreements necessary to effectuate expenditures for phase 2.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think this is really helpful, and I'm supportive of these amendments. Here at San Jose, we have a similar requirement. We do need an agreement to make a payment. And I think scopes of work is something that CC Power is already doing, so that seems fine to me. Did you want to make a motion to include these? And
I
then,
would like to make a motion
great.
to include these amendments in the proposed resolution on the budget.
Great. Okay, and so with that, let's go to Monica, see if there's additional discussion here.
Just to express my gratitude to General Manager Morris for also incorporating my suggestions and spending a lot of time with me and my staff to understand the budget. And then ultimately, allowing for this, I'm not gonna say delay, but extra time to accommodate me needing to get authority to approve the budget too, which I now have. So I'm in a much better place than we were when we first started the budget discussion. If it's okay, I'll second the motion as well.
Great. Yeah, no, thanks, Monica. Any other discussion? Comments? All right, so I think we can go to public comment. So any member of the public wanting to provide comment on this year's budget? I'm not seeing any on the attendee side, so I think we can go to vote.
Okay, for resolution 240602 as amended, approval of the 2024-2025 fiscal year budget. Ava Community Energy,
Aye.
Central Coast Community Energy,
Yes.
Clean Power SF,
Yes.
Peninsula Clean Energy,
Yes.
Redwood Coast Energy Authority,
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy,
Yes.
Silicon Valley Clean Energy,
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power Authority is absent, and Valley Clean Energy is absent. Thank you. The resolution passes.
Okay, well, great. So now we're on to closed session, but before we go to closed session, is there any public comment on the closed session item? So any of the attendees wanting to make a comment? Okay, I'm not seeing any on that side. So I think now we are logging off here and then logging on to the new link that was sent yesterday.
And I would just make the comment, there is no anticipated reportable action at this closed session. So we will be ending the public session now and we'll be adjourning out of closed session.
Okay, thanks everyone.